Welcome back, my friends. Ben Brode is at it again, this time swinging the Nerf bat and the buff hammer with equal measure. We don't have a lot of changes to talk about today, but we have nerfs for two of the most commonly played cards in the meta period, and we see major buffs for two cards that were completely invisible. Where are things shaking out after these changes? Let's break them down. First up is the Red Skull, taking yet another bullet for his darling Shuri, this time going down from a 513 to a 512. He was just nerfed in the previous patch. He gets a little more taken off the top. The developers have been clear this is just a band-aid solution to them. They have a dramatic change planned for Shuri, one that is large enough that it's not able to be deployed without a full patch. So my understanding is they're actually going to be tooling around and changing how her ability works. And until that happens, they want to make the Shuri list just a little bit less oppressive. And so when you see 1 point coming down from the Red Skull, the Shuri's best line of play is Shuri into Red Skull into Taskmaster. That whole combination then is actually losing 4 points, which is making it a little bit more surmountable, a little bit more combative for the other decks to be able to actually pass up the now 24-point Red Skull, especially if you tag him with, say, a Scorpion, dropping him down to just an 11, Man, I think that's still going to be the best play for the Shuri deck. I think the Shuri deck is still going to be your most consistent way to climb until the nerfs to her drop in the mid-season balance patch that we're going to be receiving. But in the meantime, it just gives a little bit more breathing space to everybody else. Next up, we have Sunspot, and across all metas, all time, this guy is the most played card. He fits in every single deck, or at least he used to. The developers are trying to open up space for more competition within the one cost price point so that Sunspot is just, he's no longer going to be a turn your brain off, you always include the Sunspot. Going down from a 1-1 to a 1-0 with an unchanged ability. With the rise of Kitty Pryde and then Howard the Duck coming out next month, Iceman waiting in the wings, I think the competitions for good one cost in the deck is definitely going up. Now, Sunspot is still going to be your go-to if you're trying to play Infinite, if you're trying to play She-Hulk, if you're having any kind of combo where you're doing a large pass on energy. The Sunspot just being able to scale up from the beginning of the game is still a wonderful tool, and he's only losing 1 point down. If you were investing significantly in him, he is still the go-to card, but he's going to have to fight a lot harder to be included in decks where he didn't have these as direct synergies, like I said, with the Infinite and the She-Hulk. And now for our buffs. Now, honestly, I had almost forgotten that these cards were in the game, which is how little they were being played, especially for Shadow King. He has to be one of the worst cards that we have seen released from Series 5, with no decks are trying to adapt and pick up the Shadow King. So he is getting an enormous buff from 4-3 to 3-3. He has just been discounted by 1, no alteration to his power, no alteration to his ability. On reveal, set all cards here to their original base power. You know what's really hot in the meta right now, guys? Yeah, it's Hitmonkey Bounce and Hitmonkey Sarah. You know what those decks do a lot of? They put a lot of power onto a certain card called Bishop and another certain card called Angela. Shadow King is going to reset those. And now at an entire price point cheaper, there's actually an argument to running him rather than Shang-Chi, running him rather than Valkyrie. That was his problem before, was that the Shang-Chi and the Valkyrie were both doing his job better than him. There was really no reason to run him over one of those other cards. Now, because he is cheaper, and then he can get fit in and comboed with other cards on your final turn, Shadow King could actually have some space to breathe. I thought that his best meta was going to be back with the old Surfer meta when everything was getting buffed all across the boards. But honestly, with the Angela Bishop meta that we're looking at right now, there could be a good space for Shadow King as a hard counter card. I can't wait to see what develops. We're going to be testing this out. And next, and I am incredibly happy for this one, the Sentry is buffed up from 4-8 to 4-10 with a matching change on the Void, which spawns on the rightmost location. Used to be a 4-8, now a 4-10. Ooh, finally. The problem with Sentry was that you were jumping through hoops to be able to manage the Void, but then he was just a tempo play in and of himself on this body. This body is not impressive at 4-8. At 4-10, you better betcha that I'd be happy comboing something or making concessions to deal with the Void to be able to have the 4-10 on my board. That's fantastic. With Zabu, it gets even cheaper. The combo, the dream, is that you set up Zabu early on, and then you play Sentry plus Viper comboed together on turn 5 to be able to develop a 4-10 and then give the opponent a -10. I mean, that kind of swing is just obscene. It's a 23-point turn 5 play. Now, of course, the opponent can block that off from happening by understanding that the void is very limited and only being able to play on the rightmost location. So whatever location draw you get there, you are bound to having to play within that location's effects. The opponent can clog up their side of the lane. They can put down Cosmo. There's so many ways to stop it, but now the upside is so high that I can see it definitely paying off, and we're going to be playing a ton of Sentry here at the channel as well. This was one that I'd already seen some people starting to pick up and trying. There were some content creators putting out deck lists that were really able to take advantage of Sentry. If you guys have had success with him, let me know down in the comments. I would love a jumping off point for some of my own testing because I can't wait to get into this. Now, the elephant in the room, the notable omissions. Usually it's plural here and I talk about a couple cards, but it's Shuri, right? It's Shuri. The developers are promising that they are changing Shuri in the mid-season balance patch. The change is large enough that they need a full patch to bring in the change rather than the hotfix tool. My understanding is this means her ability is actually going to get changed around. I'm really looking forward to Shuri loosening her claws. Right now she's got a death grip on the meta, and keyword death, because if you want to climb with Shuri, I think this is your last chance to be able to do so with the outrageous win percentage that she has right now and the huge power spike that she represents. My favorite change that I've always said when people come into chat wondering how Shuri could be reworked is just that we put a cap on how much she's going to be able to add to the cards. She will double the next card played, limit +5. That would be great. Make her a 4/3 on her own body, add +5 to the next card. That way, she's still representing a 4/8, which is towing the status quo of a 4-cost card. But if you're able to make duplicative use of the buff on the next card, then she is still really having powerful synergies with a lot of great cards in the game. I don't think it kills the card, but it really holds her back. Makes you think a lot more carefully about how you're going to combo her together, rather than the Shuri line of play that we see now that everybody is incredibly tired of, that it almost feels brain dead. You just establish Shuri on 4, you go into the Red Skull, you go into the Taskmaster, you snap or retreat based on the rest of the board state. And it is so rote at this point. I honestly wouldn't mind if Shuri got hit so hard that she's pushed out of the meta, because I am pretty sick of the card, but I also understand that she represents a sizable token investment for a lot of people who have put their time into the deck, so I hope that the developers find a way to be able to keep her relevant. I think that the changes to Thanos that they did in the previous patch were actually excellent. That Thanos is still a good deck, but not so overly bearing that it's just dominating the entire meta. And when you see Thanos, you groan. I don't do that anymore. When I see Thanos, I'm interested in what kind of adaptation they're running now. I hope that Shuri gets the same kind of treatment, so that if I see Shuri in the coming weeks after her rework, I'll still be like, okay, how are you planning on using Shuri this time? I understand it's still a good card, not the old play pattern. What are you bringing that's new? That's what I want to see. Let me know your thoughts on the balance changes in the comments down below. Love covering all of these. Stay tuned to the channel so that you can see us testing out our new changes and decks. We have a lot of things in the pipeline right now. Till next time, thank you guys for watching. Keep on snapping.